gonna get slaughtered.
Ah, you'll be fine. Alright, Game 1, Cincinnati Cinderaces versus Reno Raichus. Cincinnati Cinderaces bringing with them this week their Goodra, Corviknight, Incineroar, Aurorus, Frostlass, and Dragalge versus Reno Raichus, Gastrodon, Hippowdon, Lapras, Excadrill, Blastoise, and Dracozolt. An impressive Sandcore he brings with him, but mixing it up a little bit and bringing a little bit of variety this week. Alright, Reno Raichus opening that Sandcore of Excadrill and Hippowdon. Cinderaces countering with their Incineroar and their Corviknight. Incineroar getting an effective Intimidate off, and Hippowdon Sandstream setting the stage with sand. And to opening things, Excadrill goes in with a Rock Slide, but unfortunately it misses the Corviknight and hits the Incineroar for super effective damage. Corviknight responds with a Body Press at Excadrill and does a hefty chunk of damage, bringing it down to the yellow. Incineroar falls with a close combat, and that'll take out Excadrill. Hippowdon's Body Press aimed into the Incineroar. Wow! Knocks it out! What a hefty chunk of damage. That is one thick hippo. Dracozolt fills out for the Reno Raichus. Goodra fills out for the Cinderaces. Turn 2 after a double focus into the Excadrill and a single target into the Incineroar. Game is even, 3 Mons apiece. Ooh. And we have a Dynamax from the Cincinnati Cinderaces. Dynamaxing her Goodra. The thick Mons get thicker. Dracozolt with a very fast Bolt Beak into Corviknight for super effective damage, knocks it all the way out from full health. Ooh, Corviknight stood no chance. Dracozolt taking some Life Orb recoil. Goodra with a Max Worm and into Dracozolt. Oh, and knocks it out in retaliation. Hippowdon takes an attack drop, but more importantly, the Dracozolt goes down. A high horsepower from Hippowdon into Goodra. Goodra takes minimal amount of damage. A little bit of chip damage from sand. Reno Raichus' last Pokemon for Game 1 is Lapras. Cinderaces with Frostlass. No Dynamax yet from the Reno Raichus. But backed into the corner, there it is. Choosing Dynamax is Lapras. Frostlass with an Icy Wind that misses the Lapras. Hits Hippowdon for super effective damage, over a quarter of its health, and gets a speed drop. Lapras follows with a Max Hailstorm aimed at Goodra. But Goodra is thick, and Goodra don't care. Replacing the sand with Hail. Goodra responding with a Max Lightning into the Dynamax Lapras. Ooh, but Lapras don't care either. Set in electric terrain. High horsepower comes out from Hippowdon, but whiffs Frostlass. Frostlass gets away scot-free. A little bit of hail damage onto Hippowdon, which is then recovered by its leftovers. Two Mons remaining apiece. Goodra's last turn of Dynamax. 2 turns remaining for Lapras. All Pokemon still relatively healthy. Hippowdon opens with a Protect. Frostlass with a Shadow Ball into the Protect of Hippowdon. Lapras with another Max Hailstorm into Goodra, bringing it below half, but still healthy. Goodra responding with a Max Wormwind into Lapras, also bringing it down to about half health. And attack drops to both Hippowdon and Lapras. Hail damage to both Goodra and Hippowdon before Hippowdon recovers with its leftovers. And that is the end of Goodra's Dynamax. 1 turn remaining for the Dynamax of Lapras. Very close game. Frostlass connects an Icy Wind to both Mons. Ooh, brings Hippowdon below half. Speed drops to both Lapras and Hippowdon. And Goodra can now outspeed the Lapras. Hits it with a Thunderbolt. Ooh, almost brings it down to the red. Lapras' Max Hailstorm into Goodra. Knocks it out. It needed the Dynamax health to stay alive, but that'll do ya. Hippowdon responds with a Slack Off and recovers almost to full health. And now it's Frostlass versus the world. Lapras' Dynamax runs out though, so it's just Lapras and Hippowdon. Frostlass comes out with the Icy Wind, hits both of them. Negligible damage to Lapras, but a hefty chunk to Hippowdon. Make the slowest Pokemon even slower. Lapras responds with a Thunderbolt that takes it down to about half its health, and the high horsepower finally connects, only dealing about a quarter. very close game 1. Cincinnati Cinderaces hanging on by a thread with their last Pokemon, Frostlass. Frostlass aiming a Shadow Ball into Lapras. Does indeed KO it. Down to a 1v1, Hippowdon versus Frostlass. Hippowdon's high horsepower connects, but Frostlass hangs on with 6 HP. Hail ends and electricity vanishes. What a nail biter. Frostlass with the Shadow Ball into Hippowdon. Hits it for a chunk of damage and gets the Spadef drop. Hippowdon's high horsepower connects with Frostlass and gets the final KO. Game 1 to the Reno Raichus. Really good game. Very close. Any thoughts?
That's good.
Coach, a few words.
It's like a back and forth, a hit for hit kind of thing.
Any thoughts what you're going to do moving forward?
Nope.
Nope. Only time will tell. Following a nail-biting game 1, we now bring you game 2, Cincinnati Cinderaces versus the Reno Raichus. Reno Raichus picking up the first game by the skin of their teeth. Only one Pokemon remaining. Reno Raichus opening Dracozolt and Hippowdon versus Cincinnati Cinderaces Corviknight and Frostlass. Hippowdon's ability Sandstream sets the sand, and game 2 begins. Dracozolt opening first with a Bolt Beak into Corviknight, taking it all the way from full to 0. Corviknight goes down. Dracozolt taking some Life Orb recoil. Frostlass responding with an Icy Wind, connecting both mons, bringing Dracozolt down to below half health and getting a speed drop on both. Hippowdon falls with a high horsepower into Frostlass, taking it down to about half before Frostlass takes some chip damage from the sand, and Hippowdon recovers some HP with its leftovers. Rough turn 1 for the Cinderaces. Dracozolt going first and taking out Corviknight in the first hit really sets her back. But she responds with an Incineroar, who's going to come out with an Intimidate and get a double attack drop. The Sword and Shield fossil Pokemon now have access to their hidden abilities thanks to the Crown Tundra DLC. And Dracozolt, even with a speed drop, is still faster with its Bolt Beak, takes Frostlass out. Incineroar falls with a Darkest Lariat. Connecting with Draco's ult and knocking it out in exchange for the Frostlass. Hippowdon falls with a high horsepower into Incineroar and deals a hefty chunk of damage, but still in the green, still going strong. Ooh, but then the chip damage from the sand brings it down to below half. And Cinderaces send out Goodra, their final Pokemon. Reno Raichus respond with a Gastrodon. 3v2, favor of the Reno Raichus, sitting on Gastrodon and Hippowdon versus Cincinnati Cinderaces, Incineroar and Goodra. Incineroar about half health, Hippowdon taking just less than a quarter. Cincinnati Cinderaces going for the Dynamax, Dynamaxing their Goodra. And a responding Dynamax from the Reno Raichus. This time choosing to Dynamax his Hippowdon. Goodra opens with a Max Wormwind, dealing a chunk of damage to Gastrodon, but less than half. But importantly, handing out attack drops. Incineroar falls with a Darkest Lariat into Hippowdon, negligible damage. Gastrodon falls with a Muddy Water. Ooh, Incineroar hangs on with 6 HP. Unfortunately, the sand will pick it up at the end of the turn. And the double accuracy drop. But what's this? The Incineroar's Berry brings it back up to yellow. Hippowdon's Max Quake goes into Goodra. Ooh, for next to no damage at all, but giving its side a Spadef boost. Goodra, then Incineroar, and then some leftovers for Hippowdon. I thought your Incineroar was a goner.
Me too.
Goodra opens with a Max Flare into Hippowdon. Not doing much damage, but resetting the weather and setting sunlight. Incineroar falls with a close combat into Hippowdon, dropping it down to about half health. But Incineroar taking some defense drops. Ooh, Gastrodon with an Ice Beam into Goodra. Super effective, but still not much damage. And then Hippowdon with the Max Quake into Incineroar to pick up the KO. Goodra versus the world. Down to a 1v3 for the Cincinnati Cinderaces. Goodra, Dynamax, facing off against Gastrodon and Dynamax Hippowdon, plus one more in the back. Goodra opening with a Max Whirlwind in Hippowdon for minimal amount of damage. But more attack drops. Gastrodon with an Ice Beam for a small chunk of damage. Hippowdon with a Max Quake. Ooh, Goodra eating those up. That brings Goodra's Dynamax to an end, as well as Hippowdon's. Hippowdon with the Protect. And the Goodra with the Dragon Pulse into the Protect. Gastrodon falls with an Ice Beam. Goodra takes it handily, might be able to take a couple more of those. One more for sure. Goodra's Dragon Pulse into Gastrodon. Ooh, not much damage there at all. Gastrodon's Ice Beam back into Goodra brings it down to 20 HP and in the red, while Hippowdon slacks off and recovers HP. Almost back to full, but back to full thanks to the leftovers recovery. I try and stay neutral, but this is bleak. Goodra with one more Dragon Pulse into Gastrodon before Gastrodon finishes it off. GG, game 2 to the Reno Raichus. One more game to go. Can Cincinnati Cinderaces pick up a point? Let's find out. Game 3, redemption time.
We'll see.
Reno Raichus opening Hippowdon Draco's ult. Cincinnati Cinderaces responding Dragalge and Aurorus. Hippowdon set in the sand. Here we go. Game 3. 2-0 so far in favor of the Reno Raichus. Cincinnati Cinderaces fighting for a point. The opposing Draco's ult opens with the Dragon Claw into the Dragalge and picks up the KO from full health. Ooh, but Dragalge's poison point does get the poison on Draco's ult before Dragalge goes down. Aurorus falls with an Ice Beam into the Draco's ult and picks up the KO! Wow, that was a lot of damage! Hippowdon falls with the Body Press into the Aurorus. Ooh, and that's also going to pick up the KO from full health. Times 4 fighting into Ice and Rock. Yikes. Reno Raichus fills out with Gastrodon. Cincinnati Cinderaces reveals her final 2 Pokemon, Incineroar and Goodra. Incineroar's Intimidate picks up a couple attack drops. A lot of damage flying around first turn. Reno Raichus picking up 2 KOs. Cincinnati Cinderaces responding with a KO of their own. Cincinnati Cinderaces choosing to Dynamax their Goodra again. So big, so thick. But the Reno Raichus also choosing to Dynamax. Dynamaxing their Hippowdon again. That's a big hippo. Goodra goes first with the Max Flare into Hippowdon. Small chunk of damage, but resetting the weather. Incineroar following with a close combat into Hippowdon. Also for minimal damage. And a couple defense drops. Gastrodon responds to the Muddy Water, connects both of them. Minimal damage to Goodra due to the sunlight and resistance, and an accuracy drop onto Incineroar. Hippowdon falls with a Max Quake into Incineroar, but that's going to pick up the KO. Staring down a 1v3 again. Dynamax Goodra versus the world. Cinderaces unfortunately finding themselves in a tight spot once again come this game 3. Goodra opens with a Max Whirlwind in Hippowdon, not bringing it down to half, but getting attack drops to both sides. Gastrodon falls with an Ice Beam into Goodra for minimal amount of damage. And a Max Quake from Hippowdon, also for minimal amount of damage. But more importantly, a special defense boost for his side. Hippowdon recovering some HP with the leftovers. Now both Mons are down to their final Dynamax turns. Hippowdon finally dropping below half health thanks to a Max Whirlwind from Goodra. Gastrodon and Hippowdon responding with Ice Beam and Max Quake respectively. More special defense boost. More leftovers recovery. That brings both Dynamaxes to an end. Hippowdon opens with the Protect, which Goodra leaves a Dragon Pulse straight into. Gastrodon's Ice Beam brings Goodra down to below half health. Hippowdon picking up a little more HP with its leftovers, bringing it back into the green. But this is looking like it's going to be game 3 to the Reno Raichus. Reno Raichus playing carefully not to give the Cinderaces any openings. Gudra hangs on with 3. And the battle continues. That will do it. Reno Raichus completes their sweep of the Cincinnati Cinderaces, 3 games to none. GG to both teams, well fought.